welcome everyone
Yeah.
for another session. Hopefully, it won't be too tedious for you, and it won't be too long. Um, we are about to upload in our channel a message on that we have entitled "His Righteousness by His Faith." So it's His righteousness and it's His faith. So over the years, I have come across many sermons that are entitled, righteousness by faith, or they dealing with the issue of righteousness by faith. But once you start listening to the sermon, you actually realize that the title and the content don't match up. It becomes our righteousness, our faith, or our righteousness, our works. Okay, so so I hope you check it out and you watch it. And because I am very, very much convinced that we need to understand what is the work of faith that Jesus has upon us. Remember that blessed are those that keep the commandments and have the faith of Jesus. It's not even our faith; it's His faith in us. I'll give you just a little hint on that issue. When if I ask Donald, have you been baptized?
Yes.
Okay. So have you been called by his name?
Yes.
So in Exodus 34, we actually have a whole description of his name, and this is going to be important for the study of today also. Okay, so we set in certain bases here. So in Exodus 34, the name of the Lord is outlined, but the name of the Lord not as a 5-letter word, but rather as a whole list of characters, or a whole list of character traits, I should say. And he says this, verse 6 in Exodus 34, verse 6 says this: "And the Lord passed before him," this is Moses, before Moses, "and proclaimed, the Lord, God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and the children's children to the third and fourth generation." So you read there, the name of the Lord is actually character traits. So one of the things of his character traits of the name of the Lord is merciful. Merciful is his name. It's part of his name. It's part of his character trait. So Donald, what I got you there, if the name of the Lord, his name is merciful, when is God's mercy finish?
I don't think his mercy ever finishes.
Okay, all right. So Donald, look at the next part of the name. So we can say, is the surname, how, like if you ask me as a Latino person, okay, tell me of all your surnames. So I'll start saying Oscar, Sande, Hernandez, Tomé, Benito, Arroyo, and then it'll be Lalo, because I can just build up. I don't stop being a Tomé because it's part of my line. It's basically part of my line, part of my DNA. So in this case, it seems like God is like a Latino person, that has a lot of surnames on it. Okay, so so in that sense,
Gracious, long-suffering.
When is Donald? When is God's grace? Being graceful in His name. When is His grace finished?
Again, same thing. I don't think his grace ever finishes, but I'm looking at this as merciful, gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth.
All right. So his truth never finished. His patience never finished.
Right.
His grace never finished. Now, this is important because have we heard lately, especially more loudly with the coronavirus issue, that watch out, guys, because the door of grace is about to close. God's grace is, and we have used this, I mean, I haven't, but we have heard these terms. God's grace is what, Donald? Running out.
Oh,
that's
okay.
interesting.
Okay.
That has been used. That preachers have been used that term. God's grace is running out. Watch out, because the door of grace and God's grace is running out. God's mercy is running out. They use all those terms, but interesting enough, it is part of his name. It's actually part of his name. Now, I want you to notice something, what he also does, Donald, because he keeps mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin. He also does that. By no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children unto the third and fourth generation. It's amazing because in some Bibles actually doesn't use the word visiting. It uses the word punishing. Punishing the iniquities of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation. Guess what word, Donald, is there used in the original Hebrew? The word for visiting.
I'd have to look it up.
Guess what word is?
I don't know.
Well, the word is visiting.
Visiting.
The actual word is visiting.
Because that's what I have in mine. It says visiting.
Come again?
That's what I have in my version. It says visiting.
Okay, but do you know what people read it? The word is visiting. Their Bible says visiting, and you know how they're reading it? Punishing. They read it in their mind. They're reading visiting, but they're reading punishing.
Right.
Yeah, Denise, yeah.
It's interesting because I was just working on that yesterday for my series on the wrath of God. And the word visiting in ancient Hebrew is he has the role of the overseer. So just like the righteous, he's the righteous judge in the sense that he's overseeing it, not allowing Satan to go beyond where he can go. But then if we choose to join Satan, then he gives us that freedom, and then he has to let go. And that's how I see that. He's the overseer.
That's right. But
so the word visiting in the ancient Hebrew is the role of the overseer is to watch over, direct, commend, chastise, review, and count those in his charge. So just like the inkhorn, the man with the inkhorn, he's counting in a way, it's like the mother hen protecting, but then if you go away, then you're open to the predators.
And the way it's used in the Old Testament, I'll give you just a couple of examples. Exactly the same word, and translated exactly the same way. And the Lord visit Sarai, and in the appointed time, he gave her a son. Now, do you think the Lord punished Sarai with a son? Now, later on, maybe Sarah might have thought so, like, what has the Lord done to me with this little boy? But as parents sometimes think, oh man, what do we have here? But the Lord visit Sarai, and in the appointed time gave her a son. Another way was when Joseph gathers his brothers and says in Egypt, and he says, the Lord one day will visit you and deliver you from the land of Egypt. And later on he says, and the Lord visit the people according to the word of Joseph. So you know what he did? He actually visit. So I want you to notice something. Donald, answer me this question. You have Zacchaeus, a thief, perhaps the son of a thief, the grandson of a thief. When Jesus sees Zacchaeus, what does he do?
Can you remind me?
He visits him in his house.
Okay.
He actually visits him.
Okay.
He lives in his iniquity. He's a thief. and in his iniquity maybe pass on from generation to generation. God does not clear the guilty. He does not let the guilty just go on his way. He visits him in his iniquity to tell him what? That I am the God called gracious, merciful, abundant in goodness and truth, that forgives iniquity. Zacchaeus, I am here visiting you in your iniquity to tell you who I am.
So he's giving him good news.
It's actually bringing in a good news. He doesn't go to visit to tell him, I'm going to chop your head off.
Right.
So interesting enough, that is the name of the Lord. The name of the Lord visits those that are in iniquity, because even though they are still sinners, God still goes there to tell them that I have died for you. I have forgiven already. Many thousands have already accepted my salvation. And I'm coming here in your iniquity. I don't let you go into destruction just like that. I'm coming into your iniquity to remind you who I am.
That's
So
beautiful.
it had nothing to do with God punishing them, but rather not letting them go without actually showing himself and his mercy and his gracious and etc.
That's
etc.
beautiful. That's
Okay.
beautiful.
And that actually makes both verses in line, the second in line with the first. Otherwise, we end up with a bipolar God. But the original thing is this. Donald, you told me that you're called by his name. Right?
Yep.
Okay, now, when we go back to the name, let's go to read it this way then. Donald, merciful, gracious, long-suffering, and abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin. And Donald also visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and he tells them about a God that is merciful and so on and so forth. Now, I want you to notice this, Donald. You've been called by his name. That's the name. So God looks at you and says, Donald, merciful. And you go, hold on a second. I don't even qualify for the first tick.
I don't qualify for gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth either.
That's right. But you know why? Because all those are righteous characteristics. And you are acquiring them not by your faith, but by his faith, because he looks at you and he can't see it either.
Right.
He can't see that either.
See,
I mean, you yourself cannot see it. Do you think God cannot see? If you yourself can see, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you cannot see that you are merciful, long-suffering, abundant in mercy and goodness and so on and so forth.
but he
You say,
can.
hold on a second. He's calling me by something that I am not. No. He's calling you by something that he believes of you by faith.
Yes.
That's why it says the faith of Jesus. Okay, Donald, we'll one last question on this, and then we'll move on. The just shall live by
Faith alone.
faith. Okay, I want you to notice something, Donald. That's in chapter 1 on Romans, chapter 3 of Romans, that all have fallen short of the glory of God. How many?
Oh,
All. Okay. So out of the all that have fallen short in the of the glory of God, how many of them are just?
zero, I guess.
Zero, I guess. Okay. Well, now let me ask you a question then. Who is the only one that is just?
Well, Jesus.
Okay. You
Just.
know that Jesus walks by faith?
Yeah,
Because the just shall live
by faith.
by faith. So when he calls you, Donald, you're merciful, is his word of faith upon you.
Yes.
And faith transforms you, but not your faith. his faith.
Yeah. Yes.
Without faith, it's impossible. Okay? It has nothing to do with works. It has all to do with faith. Faith and works are not in the same platform. People put faith as the right hand and works on the left hand, etc. No, 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 no. Faith and works are not in the same platform. When you put faith and works in the same platform, you have a different definition. It's not righteousness by faith. It's called Pharisaism. It's called the doctrine of the Pharisees. And the doctrine of the Pharisees in Revelation 9, verses 18 and onwards until the finish of the chapter, is called a doctrine of demons. Because they worship the work of their hands. And if we worship the work of our hands, it's called the doctrine of demons. And the first one that received a mark on the forehead was someone that worshipped the work of his hands, called Cain. And he is the first one that received a mark on his forehead. Okay? All right. I hope I have opened your appetite for that message, his righteousness by his faith. And I also want to acknowledge that some of the information in that message I borrowed freely from Denise's study. So I want to acknowledge that too.